All right, let's get right into it. Today we're talking about a story that is completely flying under the radar. It's a potential financial event that could honestly make today's biggest headlines look small. We're talking about a secret $168 billion stimulus.
But you know the drill, we have to start with this. This explainer is for educational purposes only. Please don't take it as financial advice.
So, look at that number, $168 billion. And just so we're clear, this isn't some theoretical number or a crazy future projection. No, this is a massive pile of actual cash that's sitting right at the center of a huge legal showdown.
Which brings us to the big question for today. What if the single biggest injection of cash into the market in the next couple of years, what if it doesn't come from the Fed? What if it doesn't come from Congress? What if it comes from a Supreme Court decision that's been hiding in plain sight this whole time?
To really get where this money could come from, we have to dive into a super high-stakes legal fight that's making its way up to the Supreme Court.
Okay, so the case is called Learning Resources Incorporated versus Trump. And why does this matter? Because the way this case turns out could literally force the US Treasury to cut enormous checks and send them directly to American companies.
And at the heart of all this is a law you've probably never heard of. It's called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA for short. All you need to know is this. It's a law that gives the president some special powers to mess with international trade when there's a national emergency.
So everything, and I mean everything, it all boils down to one simple question for the Supreme Court. Does this law, IEPA, actually give the president the power to just slap on massive tariffs all by himself? Or is that something that only Congress is supposed to do?
And here's the kicker. This is the part that really matters. If the court says the president went too far, the fix is incredibly simple. If the government loses, they have to write a check. That's it. A check for every single dollar they collected from these tariffs.
So let's be super clear about what this is and what it isn't. This is not a tax cut. It's not some promise about the future. It's a direct, cold, hard cash refund. A one-time windfall that would inject a massive amount of liquidity straight into the bank accounts of these companies. Okay, so that naturally brings us to the most important question, right? If the government actually has to write this massive check, who gets the money?
Well, the money goes right back to the companies that paid the tariffs to begin with. The biggest checks, they're going to go to the sectors that import the most stuff. We're talking about retail giants and, get this, the auto parts industry, which paid something like $40 billion all by itself.
And to make this really hit home, think about names you know. Companies like Target and Best Buy. They've paid billions, with a B, in these specific tariffs. For a company like them, getting all that cash back in one lump sum would be an absolutely enormous boost to their bottom line.
And that is exactly why some folks are calling this a backdoor stimulus. Think about it. It's a $168 billion injection into the economy, and the Fed has nothing to do with it. It's a direct cash transfer that could fuel everything from stock buybacks to paying off debt or making huge new investments.
So we've got the what, we've got the who, now let's talk about the when and the how. What's the timeline look like, and how are smart investors even thinking about this?
Okay, so here's how this could play out. Companies have been paying these duties for years now. The real fireworks would start when the news breaks that the Supreme Court has officially taken the case. The projection for that is around December 2025. Then, we'd be looking for a final decision sometime in the first few months of 2026.
Now, look, this is no sure thing. There's a really clear risk versus reward here. If the court sides with the government and upholds the tariffs, the stocks of these companies could definitely take a hit. But if the court rules against the government, the reward is that massive cash refund we've been talking about, and you'd expect a pretty big pop in their stock prices.
The most important thing to get here is that this is not a buy-the-whole-market kind of event. Not at all. The strategy people are talking about is more like a sniper approach. It's all about finding the specific companies on what's called the plaintiff list. Basically, these are the companies that were smart enough to file lawsuits to make sure they'd get a refund if they won. The rule is simple. No lawsuit, no check.
So after all that, what's the one thing you should really walk away with?
Here it is. This isn't just some wild idea. There are real signs that smart money is already paying close attention. They're watching these niche indexes that track sentiment around customs lawsuits. And you better believe they are going through that plaintiff list with a fine-tooth comb to see exactly who is eligible for a payout.
And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. While everybody else is obsessed with inflation and what the Fed's going to do next, Could this quiet little court case be the market's biggest blind spot? And maybe, just maybe, its biggest opportunity for 2026?
Definitely something to think about. And one last time, just a reminder, all of this was for educational purposes. It is not financial advice. Thanks for tuning in.